Hey everyone, Demo here with a heroic Dimensius guide. This will be just speculation based on kind of reading the dungeon journal since there was no testing of this on the PTR. So let's go over the general mechanics and try to get an idea of what's going to happen here. So in phase one, we're either going to split the room into two different groups, and you may do that later on, or it could be stack in the middle first as a group and deal with the Devourer, then split into two teams. Now, the reason why I say that you could maybe stack in the middle at the beginning is that in the Dungeon Journal it states that upon basically immediately he tries to devour players, and so the whole mechanic in this phase is that at 100 energy he devours players. So assuming maybe he starts at like 80 energy, and we need to increase our gravity stack so that we don't get sucked into Dimensius. And if you get devoured, you get one shot. So that's going to be your biggest mechanic that you're dealing with in this phase and throughout the majority of the fight, anyways. So we go into the mechanics here. So how do we deal with the gravity? The tank will get a big group soak, so we'll want to make sure that if we are split into two teams, or either if we start at the beginning, we start together, we do a group soak, and then we'll deal with this. This is how we create our gravity area, basically. They'll spawn living masses that people will need to DPS down. Not sure how many. When the living mass dies, it'll drop excess mass. And so you want to assign these to players to pick up. You'll most likely want ranged players doing this, just as they'll create the gravity well afterwards. So players within 3 yards create the gravity field. So the players that have the excess mass, they need to be close to each other to create the gravity field. When two players with excess mass stand within 3 yards, they create that gravity debuff, or that gravity field that gives us a gravity debuff. Our gravity debuff needs to be higher than his devour stack. So if he devours instantly, or very close to the beginning of the fight, he would have one stack. So that would mean that we would need to have 2 stacks of gravity debuff because he has 1 stack of devour. Each player with excess mass in the gravity field increases the amount of gravity stacks that we get. So when he starts to get to 2 devour stacks, 3 devour stacks, 4 devour stacks, whatever it gets up to, and again, we still have to have more gravity stacks. That's where you might have at the beginning, you have 2 people in these soaks with excess mass. Now you need to have 3 people with excess mass in these gravity soaks so that we get 3 stacks, or 4 people in the gravity or with excess mass in the gravity to increase the amount of stacks that we get. So people just have to walk into the gravity zone to get the stacks. And then I kind of explained, if we need more stacks, we'll need more people in there. We'll get the stacks. He attempts to devour, killing anyone with less stacks than he has hunger. So players will be targeted with dark matter. This is just an AoE debuff. Simply run to the back of the room with this. Again, assuming both sides, and you're kind of now getting limited space, and you maybe are moving towards the middle, and then he resets and you go to the outside. Shattered space. This is why people think that it's a left and right, is that he will, with his left hand and right hand, basically shatter space, creating these anti-matter zones that need to be soaked by 3 to 4 players. You soak them by being within 10 yards of the antimatter sphere. It's not like running into it or standing in a puddle. You just need to be within 10 yards. Once you soak it, it'll prevent the raid wiping damage that'll happen. And then reverse gravity throws players into the air. Our people with assigned excess mass need to stand underneath these players, and they will bring them back down to the platform. If they are not done in a short amount of time, they basically are thrown into the Dimensius and instantly killed. So important mechanic there to keep our players alive. So we'll repeat these mechanics until the boss reaches 0% for intermission. Once we get to intermission, this will be just like Tindril flying. To different platforms, you'll collect the stellar cores to damage Void Lords on landing. Each stellar core will be 5% of the Void Lord's maximum health. And like I said, most likely a set amount of cores similar to Tindril. I think Tindril was like 10, so this would probably be... You'll definitely want to get all of them. It just depends on the tuning of the Void Lord's health. Maybe it's 10 and he starts at 50%, something like that, because you've got all of them. So... 2 planets to land on. You may split the groups. That's most likely the consensus, that it'll be split groups here. Extension is similar to Razagath beams on the platforms. You'll dodge a planet. I think Dimensius will basically throw planets at people, and it'll be like in Razagath on the platforms. You kind of just move out of that way, and then it'll throw it at the other platform. Pretty similar. The Gamma Burst is Dimensius will push the players away. This is uncertain whether you'll need to be on the edge of the platform, similar to Razagath again, where you needed to be all the way up at the front. She pushed you back all the way towards that way. Or is it something where, as long as you're in the middle of the room, you'll get pushed backwards, but it'll be enough that as long as you're not on the edge and he pushes this way, you'd fall right off. But if you're in the middle, you can be safe. We'll have to see. but you most likely would probably want to play towards the middle of the platforms. And like I said, it could be where Dimensius spawns over here and he's going to push, or the push is from this way, so you need to all run up this way, more like a Gul'dan situation. So you have two of the sides. The first one you have Artoshion. You want to probably tank it in the middle of the room with the players towards the middle ring and to the outside, just again for that push mechanic from Dimensius. The mass ejection is a frontal dodge, and it leaves a aerial denial debris field behind. And then you just continue to rotate it around with the room as space starts to fill up. The debris fields could be used to counter Dimensius push. I doubt it though. It reduces your movement speed. I don't think that'll affect the push at all, but maybe that's part of the mechanic. At some point in the phase, you're going to have these debris fields, and he's going to do Conqueror's Cross. It's going to spawn a phalanx is the word they used, of ads that'll come across the room. This, I think, is very similar to Ner'zhul in the Shadow Moon Burial Ground fight. You'll kill off one of these. After one of these is killed, the others next to it within 8 yards are restored to full health, and they take 99% reduced damage. So it's not like you can kill multiple of them. I think you're just going to kill the one that's in the correct for your pattern, like your correct path to get through, and then you'll that'll be it. I don't think you'll kill anything else. The Nullbinder over here will spawn. I think this will be just probably a random spawn. It might be able to be tanked, pulled into the group, unsure, but it's just going to do AoE raid damage that stacks, and it will reduce your movement speed by 30% per stack. So I think it's probably going to be like maybe a 10-second cast that it's doing that can't be interrupted. You'll probably get one stack for sure, and then you just want to make sure you don't get a second stack or a third stack, because then at that point it's going to be 60% reduced movement speed, 90% reduced movement speed, and maybe you even can kill it before you get any movement speed reduction, which probably would be ideal, but it'll just be how it plays out. So that's kind of how I see this part going. You do the same exact thing on the Paragoth side. The only difference is that it does Stardust Nova instead of the frontal. This is probably going to be a player bait, that you'll probably bait these around the room. That would be my assumption. And then large AoE circles that you stay out of, and you just kind of rotate around the room as they leave the debris fields, similar to the other one, the other side of the boss. And then they still deal with the Conqueror's Cross and the Nullbinder. They still deal with that mechanic. It's just like one minor mechanic. So if you're splitting the groups, you probably have melee on the dodging of the frontal, and you maybe would have your range dodging and baiting this range circle. That would be probably my guess. So all right, we get into the last phase here. So 50% damage amp to start the phase. This is on Heroic. On Mythic, it's 100%. There's going to be radiating damage over time. Fist of the Void Lord from phase 1 is still on the tank, so they need to be within 15 yards of the boss. There's a Void Grass, which is a dot on random players and needs to be spot healed. And then the Void Zone on the outer ring, similar to Razagath, is like your Soft and Rage. So there's a Void Ring on the outside, and it's like slowly coming in towards the boss. So kind of restricting movement there towards the end of the fight. I think you would probably lust here. It's probably going to be the tightest check. So he's going to spawn 8 Void Stars over 10 seconds. A lot of damage that comes out at this point. You'll dodge the circles of where they spawn. So wherever the 8 circles are, you'll dodge the circles. The stars will orbit him, similar to Nexus King in phase 3. So I'll go more into where I think they are, but they'll just circle around. Stars are used for gravity, similar to phase 1. You'll stand next to him, and each time he casts Devour, he will suck in stars, black holes, and players. Sucking in the stars didn't make sense to me. It says that in the journal. If he spawns 8 Void Stars and he sucks in Void Stars, does that mean he spawns 8 more Void Stars afterwards or not? That's where I'm a little confused on this part. But we'll have to see how that plays out. So let's just say these are the spawns. I kind of thought maybe he also sucks them in a sense that he doesn't fully devour them. More so he sucks them in closer to a ring. So if these are your, like, let's say you have 4 layers. This is layer 4 stars. These are your layer 3s. These are your layer 2s, and these are your layer 1s, the ones that are really close. Maybe he sucks these in from like a layer 4 into a layer 3, into a layer 2, into a layer 1. That would make sense to me, because as players you wouldn't want to stand next to the outer rings ones, so these getting sucked in closer and closer and closer makes more sense to me. Randomly heal target Void Stars and kill them. When killed, turn into a black hole, and you'll continue to dodge them. If touching a black hole, you'll be instantly dead, and then the group most likely needs to be 20 plus yards away from the main tank. It'll do like a tank mechanic where he'll smash it, and it'll grip 20 players within 20 yards to it. I don't think that's going to be like used to dodge any or deal with any mechanics. So I just think, yeah, everybody stays away from the tank pretty much for 20 plus yards. It'll be interesting how these Void Stars work out. I'll be very curious to see when it goes live. But that's how I guess I understand it, is that when he sucks them in, he's not fully sucking them in. It's more of like a sucking them in closer and closer and closer as that ring also comes in closer. So you can start to use these ones that are further out. So, but you use your stars to give your gravity stacks so that when you're Devour, you have higher gravity stacks than he has Devour stacks again, similar to phase one. And then the last part is Darkened Sky. Most likely 3 to 4 of these expanding circles to dodge. People have linked this to the Sausage boss in the first one's from Shadowlands raid. You need to take one at a time, otherwise 300% increased damage for the soak, the second soak. So if this one is slowly growing out, all the players that go into this one, they'll get a debuff, and then this one is like growing as well. So you want to make sure that you only take this one after your debuff falls off. Then this one's slowly growing, your debuff falls off, you soak that. As the line is passing through, you just make sure that you don't pass through while you still have the debuff. I'm sure blinks will be good here. Mages, Warlock portals, Transcendence, things like that can definitely help. But that's not going to take care of everybody. So yeah, and then he'll do a Devour. He clears the field kind of thing, and I don't know if it resets. And then you just continue on as the platform still closes, and should be a pretty awesome fight. Looks good. I only worry about the size of the platform and size of the room. It doesn't sometimes make sense to me when I think about it, but that's not for me to judge. So hope you enjoy the video. Hopefully this guide helps, and best of luck when this all comes out. And this will be the last guide of the Manaforge Omega raid. I'll catch you in the next one. Ciao.